The sea breeze drifts past, carrying the salty tang and the rhythmic crash of waves against the ship's hull. Above, the sunlight dances on the rippling blue, but beneath this calm, glassy surface lies another world, one humankind has barely touched. The ocean, covering more than 71% of Earth's surface, remains a vast and uncharted realm. In truth, over 95% of the undersea world is still unexplored. We have walked on the moon, sent probes beyond the edge of the solar system, yet the abyss at our very doorstep remains largely a mystery. It is not merely a void in our knowledge, it is an invitation. Somewhere in the depths, explorers, marine archaeologists, and believers in ancient legends insist that lost cities still lie waiting. Perhaps they were once thriving capitals, their markets bustling, their streets glowing with torchlight at night, until they vanished without farewell, leaving nothing but stone blocks draped in coral and buried in centuries of sand. The burning question is this: are these remnants simply the product of time and disaster, or did another hand intervene? For centuries, sailors and fishermen have told of strange lights beneath the waves, unearthly sounds echoing from the deep, and colossal shapes rising from the sea before disappearing without a trace. From old maritime logbooks to modern sonar readings, the stories seem to whisper the same secret. Something is hiding beneath the ocean's skin. Central to these whispers is the legend of Atlantis, a radiant civilization described by the Greek philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago. He spoke of a grand island city, built in concentric rings of land and water, encircled by fortified walls, and crowned with magnificent palaces. The Atlanteans, Plato wrote, possessed technology far beyond their time, capable of working rare metals and crystals that the wider world would not know for millennia. Yet in a single day and night of misfortune, the city and the island were swallowed by the sea. Plato's tale may have been intended as a moral lesson on arrogance and decline, but over the centuries, Atlantis has become an enduring enigma, part cautionary myth, part tantalizing possibility, drawing in generations of scholars, adventurers, and those who follow the ancient astronaut theory, the belief that the gods our ancestors worshipped were, in fact, extraterrestrial visitors. Controversial though it may be, the theory has a certain allure, for if Atlantis truly existed, if its people really held advanced knowledge and technology, then the next question becomes, where did they learn it? And if its origins were not entirely of this earth, what would that mean for the history of our species? In recent decades, deep-sea surveys have logged hundreds of anomalies on the ocean floor, from squared stone blocks and staircases to straight, paved avenues, even massive structures resembling pyramids or ancient temples. Some are in shallow enough water for divers to see with their own eyes. Others lie at depths accessible only to remotely operated vehicles, in crushing pressure that would obliterate steel without protection. One hotspot for such discoveries lies in the Caribbean, where divers and researchers claim to have found the Bimini Road, a formation stretching hundreds of meters, its stones aligned so neatly it appears man-made. Many geologists initially dismissed it as a natural phenomenon, the product of millions of years of erosion and sedimentation. But closer inspection revealed something curious. Some slabs appeared to have been wedged into place, as if deliberately set. Theories about an ancient breakwater or harbor began to emerge. In nearby Cuban waters, sonar has recorded images that left entire exploration teams in stunned silence. Avenues and symmetrical structures, stretching across the seabed under layers of sand. Some shapes resemble pyramids, others, the foundations of massive buildings. Skeptics call it coincidence. Believers call it the missing piece of Atlantis. Plotted together on a map, these findings trace a strange network, from the Bahamas to Cuba, to Bermuda, and beyond. Is it coincidence that these points also lie near regions notorious for mysterious phenomena and unexplained disappearances? The 21st century has ushered in a new age of undersea archaeology, with deep-diving submersibles, high-resolution, sonar, and robotic explorers. Yet the more we see, the more divided the scientific community becomes. Are we uncovering evidence of forgotten civilizations, or are we misreading the handiwork of nature? And if such a civilization did exist, must we rewrite human history from the ground up? As the sun dips below the horizon, casting the Caribbean in molten gold, the research vessel departs the site, carrying terabytes of sonar data and hours of underwater footage. On deck, a young researcher stares toward the line where sea meets sky. If there's a city down there, he murmurs, It's still waiting for us to find it, and this is only the beginning. From Bimini to Bermuda, from Cuba to the far Pacific, strange clues lead us deeper into a mystery thousands of years old. Is Atlantis only a legend, or a stolen chapter from humanity's past? Hook to Chapter 2. To seek the truth, we must first turn back the clock, to the end of the last ice age, when the seas stood hundreds of meters lower, and vast lands now underwater thrived with life. To understand the mystery of Atlantis, or any sunken city, we must first step back in time. Imagine the Earth, not as it is now, but as it was 21,000 years ago. At the height of the last ice age, vast sheets of ice, some more than 2 miles thick, blanketed much of North America and northern Europe. The poles held enough frozen water to lock away billions of gallons from the oceans. As a result, the global sea level stood hundreds of feet lower than today. What is now seafloor was once dry land. Broad coastal plains stretched far beyond the modern shorelines, dotted with rivers, forests, and perhaps even bustling human settlements. Entire archipelagos existed, where today there is only open water. The world map of that era would be almost unrecognizable to us. And then, the world began to warm. Around 20,000 years ago, the great glaciers started to melt. At first, the process was slow, measured in centuries, but there were moments, scientists now believe, when melting accelerated dramatically. Gigantic torrents of fresh water flooded into the oceans, raising sea levels in bursts, rather than gradual trickles. One such event, known to geologists as Meltwater Pulse 1a, occurred roughly 14,600 years ago, when global sea levels are thought to have risen by as much as 15 to 20 meters in just a few centuries, perhaps even faster. Entire coastal regions would have been swallowed in the lifetime of a single human generation. Villages and fertile farmlands would vanish beneath encroaching tides. The trauma of those events may well have been seared into human memory, passed down through myths and legends. Across the world, many ancient cultures, from the Sumerians to the Mayans, from the Aboriginal Australians to the peoples of the Pacific, tell of a great flood that destroyed cities and reshaped the land. If such floods did occur on a global scale, they would have obliterated much of early humanity's history. Archaeologists estimate that during the post-ice age sea rise, roughly 10 million square miles of habitable land was lost, an area roughly equal to the combined size of Europe and China. Whatever settlements or civilizations existed there are now buried under silt, coral, and the crushing weight of the ocean. Mainstream archaeology often points out that the earliest known civilizations, Sumer Egypt, the Indus Valley, emerged around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, well after the seas stabilized. But proponents of alternative history argue that civilization may be far older, and that its earliest chapters now lie hidden underwater. They see the end of the Ice Age, not just as a geological turning point, but as a civilizational reset, one that erased all but scattered traces of humanity's true beginnings. This perspective finds support not just in myth, but in emerging science. Underwater surveys have revealed structures off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Americas that appear, at least to some eyes, to have been built when those areas were still above water. Geological dating suggests some of these sites could be more than 10,000 years old, placing them firmly before the accepted dawn of organized civilization. One might ask, if such ancient cultures existed, why have we found so little? The answer lies partly in the ocean itself. Saltwater is a harsh archivist. Wood rots, metal corrodes, organic material dissolves away. Even stone, given enough time under the grinding action of currents, becomes unrecognizable. What remains is often no more than foundation stones and shattered walls, ambiguous enough to fuel debate for decades. And yet, here and there, we find just enough to provoke suspicion. Road-like formations in the Bahamas, massive quarried blocks off the coast of Yonaguni in Japan, symmetrical patterns lying deep in the Gulf of Cambay in India. Are these simply quirks of geology, or the last footprints of cities drowned at the close of the Ice Age? If we could strip away the oceans, draining them like a bathtub, we might see the truth, a vast landscape of drowned valleys, ancient riverbeds, and perhaps the ruins of forgotten metropolises. But we cannot. We must rely instead on sonar maps, submersibles, and the slow, painstaking work of underwater excavation. For those seeking Atlantis, the timeline is tantalizing. Plato's account places its destruction roughly 9,000 years before his own time, about 11,600 years ago. That date, intriguingly, falls close to the end of the Ice Age and the onset of a stable, warmer world. It is also close to a climatic shift geologists call the Younger Dryas boundary, marked by sudden environmental changes and extinctions. To the believers, this is no coincidence. The skeptics counter with a different argument. While rising seas may have submerged coastal settlements, there is no direct evidence that any advanced civilization existed before the known cradle cultures. Plato's Atlantis, they say, may have been nothing more than allegory, a moral fable about the dangers of hubris. But what if the truth lies somewhere between the two extremes? What if there were cultures more advanced than we've assumed, wiped from history not by allegory, but by the roaring tides of a melting world? And so, to follow the trail of Atlantis, or any of its possible kin, we must follow the coasts that no longer exist, from the continental shelves of the Americas to the sunken plateaus of the Mediterranean. The search leads into the blue-green darkness, where daylight fades, and sonar beams sketch ghostly outlines on the seafloor. Out there, on the edge of the Bahamas, lies one such clue, a long, straight pathway of stone blocks resting under shallow, clear water. Some call it a natural formation, others call it Bimini Road, and to those chasing the Atlantis mystery, it might just be the first stepping stone into a lost world. If Atlantis is more than a myth, our first, and perhaps only real guide to it, lies in the words of Plato, the philosopher of ancient Greece. Around 360 BCE, in two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he wrote of a great island empire that had flourished in a time long before his own. To Plato's readers, it was a tale both wondrous and cautionary. To modern seekers, it is a map, however cryptic, to the world's most enduring mystery. Plato described Atlantis as lying beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the ancient name for the Strait of Gibraltar. This would place it somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, west of the Mediterranean. The island, he wrote, was larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, and it served as a hub from which the Atlantean Empire extended its influence across vast regions. It was not merely a city, but the capital of a powerful maritime civilization. What made Atlantis extraordinary, according to Plato, was its design. The city was constructed in concentric circles, alternating rings of land and water, connected by bridges and channels. At the very center stood a grand temple to Poseidon, the god of the sea, built of precious metals and gleaming stones. The walls were said to be plated in red, white, and black rock, adorned with orichalcum, a mysterious alloy described as second in value only to gold. This description has long fascinated architects and dreamers. The circular plan, so unusual in ancient city building, suggests a deliberate symbolism, harmony, balance, and power radiating from the core. Some modern engineers who have studied Plato's account argued that such a design would have been remarkably efficient for both defense and transport. The canals could have allowed ships to move deep into the city, while the rings of walls provided natural fortifications. Whether allegory or memory, the design speaks of a people with vision and resources beyond measure. But Plato's Atlantis was more than a marvel of engineering. He described a society rich in agriculture, metallurgy, and artistry. The fertile plains surrounding the city produced abundant crops, nourished by irrigation systems of astonishing sophistication. Farmers grew fruits, grains, and vegetables in carefully managed cycles, while herds of animals grazed the lowlands. In an age when many human societies still hunted and gathered, the Atlanteans were described as masters of food production and resource management. They were also miners and metalworkers of skill. Plato wrote of their ability to extract and refine rare materials, copper, tin, and that enigmatic orichalcum. Some scholars believe orichalcum may have been an ancient form of brass, an alloy of copper and zinc, though others see it as a poetic invention. To those who favor the ancient astronaut theory, orichalcum represents something else entirely, a forgotten technology, perhaps superconductive or crystalline, misunderstood by the people who later told the tale. Above all, Atlantis was wealthy. Its harbors were filled with ships, its markets bustled with trade, its temples glittered with gold and ivory. To Plato, it was the pinnacle of human achievement, but also of human pride. For in his story, the Atlanteans did not remain humble. With wealth came arrogance, and with power came greed. They sought to expand their dominion beyond their island, launching campaigns across the Mediterranean. They clashed with the ancient Athenians, who, in Plato's telling, stood as the last bulwark of justice and freedom. It was Athens, virtuous and brave, that resisted the Atlantean tide. And it was after this hubristic failure, Plato wrote, that Atlantis was struck down. Here lies the heart of the story. In a single day and night, catastrophe struck. Earthquakes and floods consumed the island. The sea rose up and swallowed it whole, leaving nothing but a memory. Atlantis was gone, its glory entombed beneath the waves. Historians for centuries have debated Plato's intent. Was he recording an ancient tradition passed down from Egyptian priests, as he claimed, or was he crafting an allegory, a moral parable about the dangers of unchecked ambition? For many classicists, Atlantis was never meant to be taken literally, yet the level of detail in Plato's account, the measurements of walls, the descriptions of resources, the specifics of geography, is difficult to dismiss as mere invention. Why include such elaborate imagery if the tale was only metaphor? This ambiguity has fueled centuries of speculation. Two seekers of lost worlds, Plato's words are not allegory but testimony. They see in his writings echoes of real events, a civilization destroyed at the end of the Ice Age, its memory preserved imperfectly through oral tradition, and finally immortalized by a philosopher who may not have understood the magnitude of what he was recording. And there is another layer, the possibility that the gods of Atlantis were not divine at all. Some modern interpreters suggest that Plato's description of Poseidon founding the city and fathering its rulers may hint at something more. If one accepts the ancient astronaut hypothesis, Poseidon could represent an extraterrestrial visitor, one who imparted knowledge, technology, and order to early humans. The circular design of the city, the mastery of metals, the sudden appearance of advanced skills, all could be signs, they argue, of outside influence. Whether we see it as myth, memory, or something in between, Plato's blueprint has served as a beacon. Explorers from the Renaissance to the present day have scoured maps, seas, and coastlines in search of a city that matches his description. Some look to the Mediterranean, others to the Caribbean, and still others to the frozen expanses of Antarctica. Yet the question persists. If Atlantis truly existed, where did it lie? And more importantly, what, if anything, remains? As the camera pans across the ruins of stone circles in Malta, the sunken roads of Bimini, and the geometric blocks of Yonaguni, the parallels to Plato's tale seem almost too strong to ignore. But are they proof, or coincidence? That question remains unanswered. What is clear is that Plato gave us more than a story. He gave us a vision, one that has haunted the imagination of humanity for over 2 millennia. And if there is truth in his words, then somewhere beneath the waves lies the evidence. The bones of temples, the foundations of walls, the silent harbors of a drowned empire. The waters off the island of Bimini, in the Bahamas, are as clear as glass. Sunlight filters through in dancing ribbons, illuminating a shallow seabed of pale sand and coral gardens. It is a place of serene beauty, and yet, for decades, it has been at the center of one of archaeology's most persistent controversies. The story begins in 1968. A team of divers, among them the American naturalist and explorer Mason Valentine, were conducting a routine survey along the western shore of North Bimini. The ocean floor here lies just a few meters below the surface, an easy dive for even casual snorkelers. But on that day, Valentine saw something that stopped him cold. Stretching for nearly half a kilometer, in only 4 to 5 meters of water, lay a line of massive, flat stone blocks. Each was rectangular or polygonal in shape, some as large as several meters across, and they appeared to be laid out in a deliberate pattern, edge to edge, forming what looked like a paved road, disappearing into the distance. Valentine knew this was no ordinary find. He called in other divers, photographers, and eventually scientists to examine the site. Soon, the formation became famous and controversial. Supporters hailed it as a man-made causeway, perhaps the remains of an ancient harbor wall or ceremonial walkway. Skeptics argued it was simply a natural phenomenon, a beach rock formation created when sediments cement together under the influence of seawater chemistry, later fracturing into geometric shapes. On the surface, the skeptic's case seems reasonable. Geological processes can indeed produce stone slabs and even align them in lines. But as divers swam over the Bimini Road, some noticed details that challenged the natural formation theory. In places, smaller stones appeared to be wedged deliberately under larger ones, as if to level or support them. In other sections, the slabs seemed stacked in tiers, a construction technique, not a geological accident. Further fueling the mystery was the alignment of the road itself. It ran in a gentle curve, parallel to the modern shoreline, in a way that suggested it might once have protected an inner harbor from waves. Could this have been a breakwater, or perhaps the foundation of a seawall for a port now long vanished beneath the sea? Then there was the timing. Just a few years before the discovery, the American psychic Edgar Cayce, famous for his readings about Atlantis, had predicted that remnants of the lost city would be found near Bimini in 1968 or 1969. For Cayce's followers, the Bimini Road was not just a curiosity, it was prophecy fulfilled. As the debate grew, expeditions arrived from universities and private research groups. Cores were drilled into the stone to determine its age and composition. Results varied, with some dating the formation to only a few thousand years ago, consistent with natural beach rock, and others suggesting much older origins. Critics pointed out that even if the stone itself was ancient, the question remained, had humans shaped and arranged it, or had nature done all the work? For believers in a prehistoric maritime civilization, the Bimini Road is a tantalizing clue. Its position, just on the edge of the continental shelf, matches the pattern of Ice Age shorelines. If sea levels were lower, this area would have been dry land, possibly hosting settlements or port facilities. When the seas rose, the structures would have been submerged, but in the shallow waters here, they remained accessible enough to survive the millennia. Some researchers have speculated that the road might connect to other submerged features in the Bahamas, stone circles, block fields, and ridges scattered across the seafloor. Together, these could represent the skeletal remains of a much larger complex, now hidden under coral and sand. Swimming along the Bimini Road today, you can see why it inspires such fascination. The blocks lie in a neat procession, their edges softened by erosion but still distinct. Fish dart between the cracks. Sea fans wave lazily in the current. The line fades into the haze as it stretches toward deeper water, as if inviting divers to follow it into the unknown. In documentaries and speculative books, the road is often shown alongside Plato's description of Atlantis's harbors and causeways, inviting viewers to draw the connection. Is this the first stone of that fabled city? Or are we, as skeptics claim, simply seeing patterns in nature's randomness? Reading ancient engineering into the language of geology, the truth may lie somewhere in between. Perhaps the Bimini Road began as a natural rock formation, later modified by human hands. Or perhaps it is all natural, but happened to form in a way that mimics human design so perfectly it fools even seasoned archaeologists. In science, possibility is not proof, but in mystery, possibility is enough to keep the story alive. One thing is certain. The Bimini Road has become a pilgrimage site for those seeking Atlantis. Divers from around the world come to glide above its weathered stones, to feel the pull of history, or legend beneath them. Whether they surface convinced of its artificial origin or not, all leave with the same haunting image, a path leading out to sea, vanishing into blue-green silence. And perhaps that is its true power. For even if the Bimini Road is not a remnant of Atlantis, it is a reminder that the ocean still guards secrets beyond counting. Somewhere out there, the ruins of a lost city may still stand, untouched for thousands of years, waiting for the day they rise again in the light. The waters north of Cuba are deep and deceptively calm. To the casual observer, this is an endless expanse of sapphire blue, rippling gently under the Caribbean sun. But far below the surface, in the twilight zone where sunlight fades and darkness begins, lies something that has left scientists and explorers both awestruck and uneasy. The story begins in 2001. A Canadian exploration company, working with Cuban authorities, set out to map the seabed using advanced sonar technology. Their primary mission was geological, to chart the contours of the seafloor for research and potential resource exploration. The equipment they used was state-of-the-art, high-resolution side-scan sonar capable of painting detailed images of structures hundreds of meters below. What they found was not what they were looking for. As the sonar swept across the seabed, at depths of around 650 meters, over 2,100 feet, it returned images that stunned the operators in the control room. On the display appeared a series of symmetrical shapes, lines, angles, and patterns that no one expected in this part of the ocean. These were not the random curves of geology. They looked like streets. They looked like buildings. The formations stretched across several square kilometers. There were what appeared to be broad avenues intersecting at right angles, large rectangular and circular features, and even pyramid-like shapes rising from the sediment. In places, the sonar showed clear geometric alignment, as though the layout had been planned, not by the chaotic hand of nature, but by architects. The discovery team, led by engineer Pauline Zalitsky and her husband Paul Weinsweig, was careful not to make premature claims, but the images spoke for themselves. To many, they looked eerily like the blueprint of a city. Skeptics were quick to point out that sonar imagery can be deceptive. Underwater currents, sediment layering, and unusual rock formations can create patterns that mimic man-made structures. Without direct visual confirmation from cameras, any interpretation remained speculative. Still, the sheer scale and symmetry of the Cuban site set it apart from most known geological formations. In the months that followed, Zalitsky's team returned with a remotely operated vehicle ROV, equipped with video cameras. The descent was slow. At these depths, the water pressure is crushing, and light from the surface cannot reach. When the ROV's lights flickered on, they revealed massive stone blocks, some stacked atop each other, others lying in rows. A few appeared to have surfaces too flat and edges too straight to be purely natural. The stones were enormous, some weighing several tons. The arrangements suggested platforms, walls, and perhaps even stair-like structures. If these were indeed man-made, the question was immediate and staggering. Who built them, and when? Geologists noted that the site now lies on a section of seabed that could have once been dry land, but only if sea levels were significantly lower, as they were at the end of the last ice age. That would place any construction at least 10,000 years ago, well before mainstream history recognizes the existence of advanced city-building cultures. The location itself deepens the mystery. The Cuban structures sit along the edge of the basin, not far from the Cayman Trench. This region is geologically active, with faults and potential for sudden shifts in the seafloor. Could an ancient landmass here have been submerged rapidly by seismic activity or a catastrophic rise in sea level? And if so, could it have taken an entire city down with it in a single event, much as Plato described Atlantis disappearing in a single day and night of misfortune? For some researchers, the resemblance to Plato's account is irresistible. The site lies in the Caribbean, beyond the Pillars of Heracles. If one extends the term to the Atlantic's western reaches, it features what appear to be monumental architecture, possibly even pyramid-like structures, and it would have been swallowed by the sea around the same time Atlantis was said to vanish. Not everyone agrees. Some oceanographers remain cautious, warning against the human tendency to see patterns where none exist, a psychological quirk known as They argue that only extensive excavation and direct sampling could confirm whether the Cuban site is truly artificial. But such excavation is no simple task. The depth alone presents enormous technical and financial challenges. Operating ROVs at 650 meters requires specialized vessels, significant funding, and complex logistics. And unlike shallow water sites such as Bimini, this location is far from the reach of casual divers. Every minute of exploration here costs thousands of dollars. Despite these obstacles, the Cuban discovery has become a touchstone for alternative historians and Atlantis seekers. For them, it is the most compelling candidate yet for a lost city of the deep. They point to other submerged sites, Yonaguni in Japan, Dwarka in India, as part of a global pattern, the remnants of a prehistoric civilization scattered and drowned by the great floods at the end of the Ice Age. Even among skeptics, there is agreement on one point. The site demands further study. Whether the formations are the handiwork of ancient engineers or the artistry of nature, they represent a unique and valuable feature of our planet's undersea landscape. And so, the Cuban city waits in silence, its stone shapes cloaked in silt, its avenues walked only by fish and currents. Perhaps it is nothing more than geology. Or perhaps, as some believe, it is the final resting place of a chapter of human history erased by the sea. Either way, it calls to us. A ghostly map on the ocean floor, daring us to follow its lines and see where they lead. Few places on Earth carry a reputation as ominous and enduring as the Bermuda Triangle, defined loosely by points in Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. This vast swath of the Atlantic Ocean has been the stage for centuries of strange tales: ships vanishing without distress calls, aircraft disappearing mid-flight, compasses spinning wildly, and sudden violent storms erupting from clear skies. For skeptics, these stories are folklore, inflated by coincidence and human error. For believers, the triangle is a gateway to forces unknown. But in the 1970s, one story emerged that seemed to offer something tangible: a physical structure, hidden deep beneath the waters of this fabled region, that could explain at least part of its mystery. It was 1977 when reports first surfaced of a team of scientists, working with both American and French researchers, using sonar to map the seafloor in the northern Bermuda Triangle. The size was staggering. Measurements suggested a base nearly 300 meters wide and a height of about 200 meters, making it larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. The pyramid appeared perfectly symmetrical, its lines sharp and distinct, even through layers of sediment. Around it, the water registered unusual optical effects, an eerie, shimmering quality, as though light were refracting in strange ways. The discovery quickly became controversial. Some scientists involved were cautious in their interpretations, noting that sonar can sometimes produce misleading imagery when scanning steep or irregular terrain. Others, however, were convinced they had found a man-made monument, one that had been built on land and later submerged. If true, the implications were profound. To stand where it is now, the pyramid would have had to be constructed before the last significant sea level rise, at least 10,000 years ago, placing it firmly in the realm of prehistory. That timing aligns uncomfortably well with Plato's account of Atlantis and with other submerged sites across the globe. What's more, proponents of the ancient technology theory began to speculate about the pyramid's purpose. Some suggested it might have been built not as a tomb or temple, but as an energy collector, a structure designed to harness or focus natural forces. They pointed to the pyramid's location within the Bermuda Triangle, an area already associated with magnetic anomalies, unusual weather, and, in fringe theories, interdimensional phenomena. Could the pyramid have been intended to manipulate such energies? Could it even be, they asked, the source of the mysterious disappearances? Among the more speculative ideas was the notion that the pyramid still functions in some capacity, generating electromagnetic fields or creating vortices that disrupt navigation and communication equipment. Witnesses over the years have described seeing enormous columns of light or waterspouts rising unexpectedly from the ocean in the triangle, phenomena that, in the minds of some, could be linked to the activation of an ancient machine beneath the waves. Of course, these claims are impossible to verify without a thorough, modern survey. And therein lies the problem. Despite the allure of the discovery, no comprehensive scientific expedition has been mounted to revisit and conclusively document the structure. Whether due to funding limitations, logistical challenges, or simple disinterest from mainstream institutions, the Bermuda Triangle Pyramid remains largely unexplored. In the absence of new data, the legend has only grown. Authors, documentary filmmakers, and alternative historians have woven the pyramid into the tapestry of the Triangle's mysteries, tying it to everything from UFO sightings to lost civilizations. For believers in Atlantis, it is a perfect fit, a colossal monument from a vanished world, lying in one of the most infamous stretches of ocean on the planet. Skeptics, meanwhile, urge caution. Without hard evidence, high-resolution imaging, physical samples, and direct observation by submersibles, the pyramid could just as easily be an unusual geological formation, a quirk of volcanic activity or erosion rendered misleading by sonar's limitations. The Bermuda Triangle, after all, lies above complex underwater topography, including the steep slopes of the mid-Atlantic ridge and numerous seamounts. Yet the mystery persists. The few grainy sonar images and anecdotal reports keep the possibility alive that something extraordinary does lie beneath the waves, something intentionally built, impossibly old, and still influencing the waters above. If the pyramid is real, and if it is indeed artificial, it would force a complete rethinking of human history. Who built it? What knowledge did they possess to create such a structure? And what happened to them? As the sun sets over the Atlantic, casting golden light over an ocean, hiding more questions than answers, one can't help but imagine the silent giant below, its dark stone slopes stretching up toward a surface it hasn't seen in thousands of years. Is it a relic of a forgotten age? or simply another riddle the Bermuda Triangle keeps for itself. The Pacific Ocean, off the far southwestern tip of Japan's Ryukyu Islands, is a place where history and legend meet in the surge of powerful currents. Yonaguni Island, a rugged outcrop just 125 kilometers from Taiwan, is famed for its hammerhead sharks and crystal-clear waters. But in 1986, it became famous for something far stranger, a submerged monument that would ignite one of archaeology's most contentious debates. It began with a local diver, Kihachiro Aratake, searching for new dive spots to attract tourists, while exploring the seabed near the island's southern coast. He descended to about 25 meters and found himself staring at something that made his heart race. Rising from the sandy bottom was a massive stone structure, its edges unnaturally straight, its surfaces unnervingly flat. It looked less like a coral-covered rock formation and more like the ruins of an ancient building, or even a step pyramid. Word spread quickly. Photographs and videos captured the attention of both the public and the scientific community. Soon, divers and researchers from across Japan, and later, the world, came to see it for themselves. What they found was staggering: a complex of terraces, steps, and broad platforms, carved with such precision that many could scarcely believe it was natural. The main formation, now called the Yonaguni Monument, measures about 150 meters long, 40 meters wide, and 27 meters high. Its sides rise in sharp, straight angles. Massive staircases climb in perfect symmetry. There are flat plazas, narrow passageways, and features that resemble gateways or corridors. At certain angles, the monument seems almost eerily architectural. One section has been dubbed the stage for its open, flat expanse bordered by stone walls. Another is called the Stargate, a triangular opening that could be interpreted as an entrance. Divers have even pointed out what appear to be carvings, symbols etched into the rock, outlines of animals, and most controversially, a stone head that some say resembles ancient statues found in South America. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus became one of the site's most vocal proponents for a human origin. After over 15 years of diving and measuring the monument, Kimura concluded that it was a man-made structure, or at least heavily modified by human hands. He argued that the sharp corners, right angles, and uniform terraces were too precise to be the work of natural erosion alone. In his view, Yonaguni was part of a much larger city complex, now mostly hidden beneath the waves, dating back over 10,000 years, to a time when sea levels were much lower. Kimura even suggested that Yonaguni could be linked to the lost civilization of Mu, a legendary Pacific culture said to have vanished beneath the sea. While mainstream archaeology dismisses Mu as myth, the idea of an advanced culture thriving before recorded history dovetails with theories about Atlantis and other lost worlds. Skeptics, however, see Yonaguni differently. Many geologists argue that the monument is simply an example of tectonic uplift and natural fracturing of sandstone in regions with strong seismic activity, and Japan is one of the most active. Rock can crack and shear into straight-edged blocks. Combined with centuries of wave action, these formations can resemble man-made steps and walls. Indeed, the waters around Yonaguni are notorious for their ferocious currents. The same surging forces that make it a haven for large pelagic fish could also shape and sculpt rock in striking ways. To those in the natural formation camp, Yonaguni is a geological wonder, but not a city. Yet certain details keep the debate alive. Divers have noted areas where smaller stones appear to have been deliberately placed between larger slabs, as if to stabilize them. Some surfaces bear marks that resemble tool cuts, and then there's the matter of scale. The monument's sheer size and uniformity make it one of the most unusual underwater formations in the world. If Yonaguni is artificial, it poses serious questions. Its current depth means it would have been above water at least 8,000 to 10,000 years ago, during the last ice age. That would make it thousands of years older than the pyramids of Egypt or the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, older, even, than most accepted human architectural traditions. Who could have built it, and why? Some theorists, leaning toward the ancient astronaut hypothesis, suggest that Yonaguni might have been a ceremonial or technological site built with knowledge beyond what we attribute to Ice Age humans. Others imagine it as the last remnant of a once thriving coastal city swallowed by post-glacial floods. Today, Yonaguni has become a magnet for divers and alternative history enthusiasts alike. Under the shimmering turquoise waters, they swim over its vast platforms and climb its submerged steps, each diver forming their own conclusion about its origin. The monument stands silent, as it has for millennia, its story hidden in the meeting of stone and sea. Whether natural or crafted, Yonaguni remains one of the ocean's greatest enigmas, and like the Bimini Road or the Cuban city, it hints at the possibility that our planet's true history may lie not in dusty deserts or jungle ruins, but beneath the restless waves. If the Atlantic has the Bermuda Triangle, the Pacific has its own counterpart, a stretch of ocean equally steeped in legend, mystery, and fear. Known as the Dragon's Triangle, or the Devil's Sea, this area lies off the southern coast of Japan, roughly between the Japanese mainland, the Bonin Islands, and Guam. It has been the subject of centuries of folklore, whispered warnings among sailors, and in recent decades, a growing list of strange disappearances. For the Japanese, stories of the Dragon's Triangle go back generations. Ancient fishermen spoke of sudden whirlpools, monstrous sea creatures, and glowing objects that would rise from the water and vanish into the sky. In feudal times, the region was considered so dangerous that shoguns forbade certain voyages through its waters. Even today, modern ships passing through sometimes report inexplicable malfunctions in navigation equipment, compasses swinging erratically, or radar screens filled with static. The area also has a reputation for geological volatility. The Dragon's Triangle sits along the Pacific Ring of Fire, a region of intense seismic and volcanic activity. Submarine volcanoes dot the seabed, and underwater eruptions can occur with little warning. Such activity could explain some shipwrecks. Sudden gas releases from the seafloor can alter water density, causing vessels to lose buoyancy and sink without a trace. But the mysteries of the Dragon's Triangle extend beyond natural hazards. Reports from the 20th century describe sightings of UFOs emerging from the sea, strange lights pulsing beneath the waves, and even claims of enormous undersea structures. For believers in ancient civilizations, these tales suggest that the triangle may conceal something far older and far stranger than geology alone. One of the most intriguing connections between the Dragon's Triangle and lost civilizations is its proximity to the Yonaguni Monument. Some researchers have speculated that Yonaguni is just one piece of a much larger submerged network, a chain of cities or ceremonial sites scattered across the seabed. If true, the Dragon's Triangle could be the watery grave of an entire civilization, perhaps linked to the legendary continent of Mu, said to have flourished in the Pacific before sinking in a cataclysm. Legends of Mu describe a land of advanced knowledge, sprawling temples, and powerful technologies. Much like the myths of Atlantis in the West, according to these tales, Mu's destruction came swiftly, perhaps through massive earthquakes and tsunamis, sending its cities to the ocean floor. Whether myth or distorted memory of real events, the stories have fueled a century of speculation among alternative historians. In the 1970s and 80s, a handful of Japanese and foreign expeditions claimed to have found geometric structures deep within the Dragon's Triangle. These ranged from straight stone walls to pyramid-like shapes, though the photographic evidence was often grainy and inconclusive. One of the more controversial claims came from divers who reported encountering arch-like formations and large platforms reminiscent of megalithic architecture. Skeptics argue that these structures are simply the product of the region's unique geology. Volcanic rock can fracture in ways that produce flat surfaces, straight edges, and even hexagonal columns. Combined with powerful undersea currents and earthquakes, the result can mimic human craftsmanship with uncanny precision. Yet, as in so many of the world's ocean mysteries, certain details are harder to dismiss. Divers have reported smaller stones seemingly placed between larger blocks, as if to reinforce them, an unlikely coincidence in a purely natural setting. Others have noted carvings or grooves on stone surfaces that do not align with known erosion patterns. And the sheer concentration of unusual formations in one area begs the question, is this all geological chance, or the remnants of something more? Adding to the enigma are the accounts of anomalous lights, seen both above and below the water. Sailors have described glowing orbs ascending from the depths, lingering in the air, then shooting away at impossible speeds. Similar sightings have been reported in the Bermuda Triangle, leading some theorists to suggest that both regions might serve as gateways for unidentified craft. perhaps even the same network of underwater bases. To those inclined toward the ancient astronaut hypothesis, the idea is compelling. They imagine a prehistoric civilization, human or otherwise, that established strategic sites across the globe, later submerged by cataclysm, but still in use today by their descendants or other extraterrestrial visitors. In this view, the Dragon's Triangle might be not just a hazard zone, but an active hub of hidden activity. Mainstream science, of course, remains cautious. Without definitive evidence, high-resolution imagery, samples, or direct human exploration, such claims cannot be confirmed. The depths of the Dragon's Triangle are difficult to explore. Its turbulent waters, shifting seabed, and unpredictable volcanic activity make it one of the most challenging environments for sustained research. Yet the allure remains. The Dragon's Triangle is a place where the boundaries between myth, history, and science blur. It is a place where ancient legends of gods and monsters meet modern tales of vanished ships and strange lights. And for those willing to entertain the possibility, it may also be a place where the ruins of a lost civilization still stand, unseen in the dark. Beneath the roaring currents, beyond the reach of casual divers, the secrets of the Dragon's Triangle wait in silence. Perhaps they are nothing more than the artistry of nature, or perhaps, hidden among volcanic ridges and trenches, lies the proof that the Pacific, like the Atlantic, once cradled a world, now swallowed by the sea. Off the northwestern coast of India, the Arabian Sea sweeps into a vast bay known as the Gulf of Cambay. The waters here are murky, swirling with powerful tides and silt carried by rivers like the Narmada and Tapti. For centuries, this gulf has been a thoroughfare for trade and fishing. But in 2001, it became the stage for a discovery that could rewrite the story of human civilization. The find came almost by accident. The National Institute of Ocean Technology, NIOT of India, was conducting a routine survey of water pollution using side-scan sonar. The goal was simple: map the seabed and study sediment flows. But as the sonar swept across the Gulf, the operators began to notice something strange on the monitor. Patterns, rectilinear shapes, grid-like arrangements, features that seemed too organized to be the work of tides and currents. As the scans continued, a picture emerged, a sprawling layout stretching over 9 square kilometers, streets, walls, and large structures arranged in a geometric plan. Some sections appeared to have avenues intersecting at right angles, while others resembled foundations for massive buildings or public spaces. Intrigued, the NIOT team returned with underwater dredging equipment to collect samples. The Gulf's waters are far from ideal for diving. Visibility is often near zero, and the currents are treacherous, so direct visual exploration was almost impossible. Instead, they relied on bringing up whatever the seabed would surrender. What they found shocked even the most seasoned archaeologists: carved stone blocks, pieces of pottery, and fragments of sculpture. Most astonishing of all was a piece of wood, later carbon dated to around 9,500 years old, circa 7,500 BCE. That makes it older than the pyramids of Egypt, older than Stonehenge, and even older than the Sumerian cities often hailed as the cradle of civilization. Some artifacts suggested human habitation on a scale and level of organization far beyond what mainstream history attributes to that period. The pottery shards bore intricate designs, the stone tools were finely worked, and the scale of the site implied not a small village, but a substantial urban settlement, a true city. If the dating holds, the city in the Gulf of Cambay would predate the Indus Valley civilization by several millennia. This would mean that advanced urban culture existed in India thousands of years before the accepted timeline, at a time when much of the world's population was thought to live in small, nomadic groups. The implications were profound. Such a city would require agriculture, trade, and complex social organization, all hallmarks of civilization. It would also mean that much of our understanding of the rise of cities is incomplete, perhaps drastically so. But how did this city end up underwater? Geologists point to the end of the last ice age, when melting glaciers caused sea levels to rise dramatically, in some regions by more than 100 meters. Coastal settlements, no matter how sophisticated, would have been vulnerable. As the ocean advanced, low-lying areas would have been inundated, and entire cities could have been swallowed in a matter of generations. The Gulf of Cambay site fits this scenario perfectly. Around 9,000 years ago, sea levels in the region were lower, and the coastline stretched far beyond its current boundary. The city could have stood on fertile plains near a river delta, thriving until the waters rose and claimed it. Of course, not everyone accepts the find without skepticism. Critics argue that the sonar images may have been misinterpreted, and that the artifacts could have been transported by rivers from other sites. Without in-situ excavation and clear stratigraphic context, they say, it is impossible to prove that the structures are truly man-made, or that they belong to the same time period as the dated wood. Yet the sheer concentration of artifacts, combined with the unmistakable geometric layout on sonar, keeps the debate alive. And for those who entertain the possibility of lost civilizations, or even ancient global cultures, the Gulf of Cambay could be a crucial link. Some have even speculated on connections to the legendary Dwarka, the city of Lord Krishna described in ancient Hindu texts. Dwarka was said to be a magnificent city with gilded palaces and bustling harbors, ultimately swallowed by the sea after Krishna's departure from the mortal world. While most scholars place Dwarka farther south along the Gujarat coast, the parallels are tantalizing. A great city, a sudden inundation, and a legacy preserved only in story. If the Gulf of Cambay city is indeed real and as ancient as the evidence suggests, it challenges not just the chronology of Indian history, but the global narrative of human civilization. It raises a question echoed in legends from every corner of the world. How many other cities lie beneath the seas? Forgotten except in myth. Beneath the opaque waters, the ruins remain silent. Currents sweep through streets where merchants may once have called out their wares. Silt settles over plazas where children may have played. And somewhere down there, in the darkness, might still stand the stones of one of humanity's oldest homes. The Arabian Sea laps gently against the western coast of India, where the modern city of Dwarka stands. Today it is a bustling pilgrimage site, its temples drawing thousands of devotees each year. But beneath its waters, archaeologists have found evidence suggesting that this coastline has been home to more than just centuries of worship. It may hide the remnants of a city so ancient and wondrous that it was once thought to exist only in legend. The story of Dwarka is one of India's most treasured myths. According to the Mahabharata and other ancient Hindu texts, Dwarka was founded by Lord Krishna, the divine prince and warrior. It was said to be a city of unparalleled beauty, built on land reclaimed from the sea and protected by towering walls. Its streets were laid out in perfect order, its buildings adorned with gold, silver, and precious gems. Markets overflowed with goods from across the known world, and its harbors bustled with ships from distant lands. But the legends also foretell Dwarka's fate. After Krishna's death, the sea reclaimed the city. The waves rose and swallowed its shining towers, leaving nothing but water where the great city had stood. For centuries, this was considered pure mythology, a moral tale of impermanence and divine will. That changed in the late 20th century. In the early 1980s, the Marine Archaeology Unit of the Archaeological Survey of India (ASI) began investigating the waters off modern Dwarka's coast. Using sonar, dredging, and diving expeditions, they discovered stone structures beneath the waves, walls, platforms, and steps that seemed to follow a deliberate plan. Some walls were built from large, precisely cut blocks of limestone, still intact after thousands of years underwater. In subsequent surveys, divers mapped out entire sections of what appeared to be a planned city. They found street-like alignments, rectangular building foundations, and remains of a protective wall, just as the Mahabharata had described. The ruins lay at depths ranging from 3 to 10 meters, suggesting they were submerged relatively recently in geological terms. Among the artifacts recovered were anchors, pottery shards, and tools. Radiocarbon dating of associated materials suggested some parts of the site could be at least 3,500 years old, with possible earlier layers extending the city's history much further back. These dates placed the underwater structures in the time frame of India. Late Bronze Age, close enough to lend credibility to the ancient texts. The layout of the submerged ruins also matched descriptions from scripture with surprising accuracy. A fortified city with gateways, wharves, and wide avenues. The Mahabharata even describes ships sailing in and out of Dwarka's harbors, a vision mirrored in the location of the underwater walls and jetties. For believers, this was vindication, proof that the great city of Krishna was not merely a myth. For historians, it was a revelation that oral traditions might preserve accurate memories of events thousands of years old. Yet the discovery also raised new questions. If Dwarka was built on reclaimed land, as the texts suggest, how was such an engineering feat possible in the Bronze Age? How did its builders protect it from the sea, and what ultimately caused their defenses to fail? Some geologists suggest tectonic activity may have lowered the coastline, while others point to gradual sea level rise combined with storms and flooding. Alternative theorists push the speculation further. They see Dwarka as part of a global pattern, a network of coastal cities built by an advanced prehistoric civilization, later destroyed by cataclysm at the end of the Ice Age. In this view, Krishna could have been more than a mythic hero. Perhaps he was a real leader, or even an outsider with advanced knowledge, remembered as divine by later generations. Mainstream scholars remain cautious, emphasizing that much work still needs to be done to fully understand the site's origins and timeline. The waters around Dwarka are challenging for archaeology. Strong currents, shifting sands, and limited visibility make detailed studies slow and difficult. But each season brings more pieces of the puzzle. On the sea floor, the ruins lie silent. Fish dart through the openings of ancient walls. Seaweed sways over the stones of what might once have been markets and courtyards. The city that once glittered in the sun now rests in perpetual twilight, its glory dimmed but not erased. Standing on the shore, it is not hard to imagine the skyline of the legendary Dwarka rising again, with its gilded towers catching the light of dawn. A vision blurred by time, but perhaps rooted in truth. High in the Andes, straddling the border between Peru and Bolivia, lies Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world, at over 3,800 meters, 12,500 feet, above sea level. Its deep blue waters reflect the surrounding snow-capped peaks, and its vast expanse stretches farther than the eye can see. For the people of the Andes, this is no ordinary lake. It is a place of origin, a sacred cradle of gods and civilization. According to Inca legend, Lake Titicaca was where Viracocha, the great creator god, emerged from the depths after a catastrophic flood. From here, he brought light to the world, shaped the sun, moon, and stars, and sent the first humans to populate the land. The lake is also said to be where the founders of the Inca Empire, Manco, Siapak, and Mama Ocllo, rose from the waters, carrying the knowledge and authority to build the city of Cusco. For centuries, these were stories passed down in oral tradition, but in the year 2000, a team of Italian and Bolivian archaeologists made a discovery that blurred the line between myth and history. While conducting underwater surveys of Lake Titicaca, divers found stone structures beneath the surface, what appeared to be walls, terraces, and even a long, paved road. The largest feature was an enormous rectangular platform, its size and layout suggesting it may have been the foundation of a temple. The road seemed to lead directly to this platform, as though guiding pilgrims or traders to a place of importance. Artifacts recovered from the site included ceramic vessels, stone tools, and carved figures, some dating back over 1,500 years, long before the rise of the Inca. The scale and precision of the submerged structures indicated they belonged to a well-organized society with advanced building techniques. But this raised a tantalizing question. How did these constructions end up underwater? Geologists suggest that parts of the lake basin have undergone tectonic shifts over the centuries. Earthquakes could have caused land to subside, allowing the lake to expand and submerge the settlements along its shores. Alternatively, climate changes may have altered the lake's water levels over time. Whatever the cause, the result is the same. An ancient lakeside city now lies preserved beneath the waves. The discovery sent ripples through the archaeological world, not just for its historical significance, but for its cultural resonance. Many locals saw it as validation of their ancestral legends. In the Aymara and Quichua traditions, Lake Titicaca has always been more than water. It is a living entity, a bridge between the human world and the realm of the gods. Some researchers see possible connections between these underwater ruins and Tiwanaku, the ancient city located about 20 kilometers from the lake's southern shore. Tiwanaku is famed for its massive stone monuments, precise masonry, and astronomical alignments. Could the builders of Tiwanaku have once inhabited the now submerged settlements within Lake Titicaca? Or did both sites belong to an even older, forgotten culture? Alternative historians go further still. They point to similarities between the legends of Viracocha and flood myths from around the world, including stories of Atlantis. To them, Lake Titicaca might have been one of the highland refuges for survivors of a global catastrophe, who carried advanced knowledge inland after the coasts were swallowed by the sea. And then there are the more speculative claims, reports of strange lights seen over the lake at night, glowing orbs that rise from the water and vanish into the sky. Local fishermen tell of these sightings with a mix of awe and caution. For some, they are signs of the gods still watching over their domain. For others, they are evidence of something even stranger, perhaps an ancient hidden base beneath the lake, used in the distant past and still active in some way today. Whatever the truth, the ruins of Lake Titicaca are a reminder that history is not always fixed in stone. Sometimes, it is written in water. Beneath the cold, clear depths, the stones of an ancient city lie undisturbed, their story hidden until we learn how to read it. On the shores, life continues, much as it has for centuries. Farmers tending terraced fields, women in traditional skirts, and bowler hats selling crafts, reed boats gliding silently across the surface. Yet for those who know where to look, the lake holds a silent invitation. Come and see what the gods have hidden. The Mediterranean Sea has always been a crossroads, a cradle of civilizations, a meeting point for cultures, and, over the millennia, a silent witness to both triumph and catastrophe. Beneath its blue waters lie countless wrecks and ruins, but some of the most extraordinary are not ships at all. They are entire cities and temples, once vibrant centers of worship and trade, now resting on the seabed. One of the most famous of these is Heraklion, an Egyptian port city lost for over 1,000 years. Known in Greek as Thanis Herakleion, it was once the gateway to the Nile for traders from across the Mediterranean. Ancient texts describe a place of towering temples, bustling markets, and statues of the gods that loomed over the harbor. For centuries, its location was a mystery, until the year 2000, when French marine archaeologist Frank Gad and his team discovered its remains lying about 6.5 kilometers off the modern coast, buried under layers of sand and silt. Diving among the ruins is like stepping into a time capsule. Colossal statues of pharaohs and gods lie half buried in the seabed, their faces still serene after more than a millennium underwater. Stone blocks from massive temple walls are scattered like dominoes, while delicately carved stelae stand, tilted in the shifting sands. Inscriptions confirm that this was indeed Herakleion, a city that once rivaled Alexandria in wealth and importance. Archaeologists believe it sank due to a combination of earthquakes, soil liquefaction, and rising sea levels, dragging the city into the depths sometime in the 8th century CE. But Herakleion is not alone. Across the Mediterranean, similar stories echo, of coastal cities swallowed by the sea, leaving only submerged ruins as evidence. In eastern Sicily, near the ancient city of Helleros, divers have found sections of paved roads and stone walls extending into the water. These may have been part of harbor works or defensive structures that were gradually overtaken by the shifting shoreline. Off the coast of Israel, the prehistoric village of Atlantis, dating back nearly 9,000 years, lies in just a few meters of water. Excavations there revealed stone houses, wells, and even a megalithic stone circle, a reminder that advanced communities thrived along these coasts long before the rise of Egypt or Greece. Perhaps most intriguing are the sunken temples of the eastern Mediterranean. Near the modern city of Alexandria lies the underwater remains of the legendary palace of Cleopatra. Divers exploring the site have uncovered columns, sphinx statues, and granite blocks believed to be part of the royal quarter where Cleopatra once lived. The area is thought to have been destroyed by earthquakes and tidal waves in the 4th century CE, sending entire palaces and temples into the sea. The visual impact is breathtaking. Imagine swimming past a fallen column, its fluted surface still sharp to the touch, then emerging into a plaza where statues of gods lie face down in the sand. Fish dart in and out of what were once sacred sanctuaries. Coral slowly claims the carvings, transforming them into part of the underwater landscape. For archaeologists, these sites are invaluable, snapshots of history frozen at the moment of disaster. For believers in ancient catastrophes, they are also reminders of how quickly the sea can claim even the grandest of civilizations. Some researchers wonder if these submerged cities might be connected to deeper, older stories, tales of floods and vanished lands, told by cultures from the Levant to the Greek islands. Could the destruction of places like Heraklion and Atlantis be echoes of earlier, more catastrophic events, preserved in collective memory and retold as myths of lost continents like Atlantis. Skeptics caution that these sites are products of known geological processes. Earthquakes, coastal subsidence, and gradual sea level rise have been shaping the Mediterranean for millennia. Still, the sheer number of submerged settlements, from Spain's Bay of Cadiz to the shores of Cyprus, suggests that human history here is as much underwater as it is on land. What's certain is that the Mediterranean's seabed is far from fully explored. Every year, storms uncover new artifacts. Every new survey reveals shapes on the sonar that might be temples, plazas, or harbors waiting to be rediscovered. As technology improves, so does our ability to piece together the puzzle, and perhaps to understand how many chapters of history remain hidden beneath the waves. In the quiet, dappled light of the Mediterranean's depths, the temples still stand. Their columns lean, their statues sleep, and their altars are silent, but they are not gone. They are reminders that the line between land and sea is never permanent, and that even the greatest works of humanity can be claimed by the ocean. The Caribbean has long been romanticized as a paradise of turquoise waters, coral reefs, and white sand beaches. Yet beneath this idyllic surface lies a patchwork of mysteries, ancient structures, strange alignments, and underwater landscapes that challenge our understanding of history. From the Bimini Road in the north to the depths off Cuba and the Bahamas, a growing body of evidence suggests these sites might be connected, fragments of a larger, ancient network now scattered and submerged. The starting point for many researchers is Bimini, where the so-called Bimini Road stretches in its stone block formation, curving gently beneath the shallow sea. While mainstream science often explains it as a natural beach rock formation, fractured by geological processes, its scale and the deliberate appearance of some blocks still draw the attention of those looking for signs of prehistoric construction. But Bimini is only one piece of the puzzle. As divers and sonar teams have explored further across the Bahamas platform, they have found other anomalies: stone circles, rectilinear pavements, and what appear to be remnants of walls or causeways. These features often lie at depths suggesting they were last above sea level at the end of the last ice age, when the oceans were as much as 100 meters lower. In 2001, Canadian researchers working off the coast of Cuba mapped an even more astonishing find: a possible underwater city with massive geometric shapes, streets, and pyramid-like structures lying at a depth of 650 meters. While the depth and location make direct investigation challenging, the site's complexity and symmetry hint at intentional design. If proven artificial, this would require a rethinking of not only Caribbean history, but the very timeline of human civilization. Between Cuba and Bimini lies the vast Bahamas Bank, a shallow plateau fringed with deep drop-offs. This submerged landscape, covering hundreds of thousands of square kilometers, would have been dry land during lower sea levels. It's easy to imagine it dotted with settlements, harbors, and trade routes, all now lost beneath the sea. Sonar surveys here have revealed long, straight ridges and large rectangular outlines buried under sediment, still awaiting systematic exploration. Further east, the Andros platform offers another set of mysteries. Divers here have documented long parallel lines of stone blocks leading toward the deep ocean. Some believe these may have been channels or breakwaters. Others suggest they could be ceremonial avenues leading to coastal temples, structures now claimed by the waves. The possibility of a connected network becomes more compelling when we consider legends from the region. Indigenous peoples, including that spoke of ancestral lands swallowed by the sea, fertile islands where their ancestors lived before great floods forced them to flee. These oral histories echo flood myths from across the globe, hinting at real events preserved in cultural memory. Proponents of the Atlantis theory point out that the Caribbean-esque geography matches some interpretations of Plato's description: large islands surrounded by smaller ones, located in the Atlantic beyond the Pillars of Heracles. The idea of a maritime civilization based here, with outposts stretching to both the Old World and the Americas, has been a staple of alternative history for decades. Skeptics argue that most of these underwater features can be explained by natural processes: tectonic fracturing, coral growth, and sediment erosion. But they also concede that the Caribbean's seabed remains poorly explored. Less than 10% of it has been mapped in high resolution, leaving ample room for surprises. One intriguing factor is the alignment of certain sites. Some researchers have noted that the Bimini Road, structures off Andros, and the Cuban underwater site fall roughly along a diagonal axis stretching southeast to northwest, a line that, if extended, intersects other anomalous locations in the Atlantic. Whether this is coincidence or evidence of deliberate planning is a matter of debate. Modern technology is beginning to offer new ways forward. Autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, equipped with LiDAR and advanced sonar can map the seabed in unprecedented detail. Even through murky water, machine learning algorithms can help distinguish natural formations from possible archaeological sites, offering a systematic way to prioritize areas for investigation. For now, though, the Caribbean's submerged network remains a tantalizing possibility rather than a proven reality. The scattered discoveries, from the shallow stone roads to the deep city of Cuba, may be unrelated remnants, or they could be the last visible threads of a vast prehistoric tapestry. If the latter is true, then the Caribbean may not just be a holiday paradise. It could be the site of one of humanity's greatest forgotten chapters, a maritime civilization erased by the sea but not by memory. In the shimmering blue silence between islands, the stones keep their secrets. They lie patient beneath shifting sands and swaying coral, waiting for the day when we finally piece together the full map and realize that the story of the Caribbean is far older and far grander than we ever imagined. The Bermuda Triangle has always been portrayed as a place where ships vanish without warning, where compasses spin wildly, and where aircraft disappear from the skies without a trace. But beneath the folklore lies another layer of mystery, one that has nothing to do with sudden storms or vanishing vessels. It concerns what may be resting deep on the ocean floor, far below the reach of ordinary divers, in the very heart of the triangle. Stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, the triangle covers a vast and varied seafloor. Here, shallow coral shelves drop abruptly into the abyssal depths of the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the Atlantic Ocean. The terrain is rugged and extreme, riddled with underwater cliffs, seamounts, and yawning chasms. It is in this alien landscape that sonar operators, oceanographers, and a few daring deep-sea expeditions have reported colossal, unnatural shapes. The most controversial of these discoveries came from a joint US-French survey in the late 1970s, mapping the seabed near the northern edge of the triangle. Their sonar equipment traced the outline of what appeared to be a geometrically perfect pyramid. Its base was estimated at 300 meters across, its apex rising nearly 200 meters above the seafloor. The sharpness of its angles, combined with its apparent symmetry, suggested something more than geology, at least to those inclined toward mystery. Later, in the 1990s, a handful of private expeditions reported finding other rectilinear formations in the triangle's deeper zones. Some claimed to have spotted stepped terraces, massive platforms, and structures resembling walls or avenues, features strikingly similar to the submerged monuments of Yonaguni or the ruins off Cuba. The problem was that none of these reports were followed by detailed peer-reviewed studies. Funding for deep-sea archaeology is scarce, and the Triangle's reputation as a paranormal hotspot makes it difficult to secure serious institutional backing. Adding to the intrigue are eyewitness accounts from submersible crews who have described unusual energy readings, magnetic interference, and even what they call light anomalies in the deep. These range from sudden, unexplained glows in the water column to small, darting orbs of light that seem to respond to the presence of submersibles. Mainstream scientists attribute such phenomena to bioluminescent life forms or equipment malfunctions, but to others, they suggest the remnants of active technology buried beneath the seabed. One hypothesis favored by proponents of the ancient civilization theory is that the triangle's depths hide the ruins of a maritime hub, perhaps part of the same culture that built the Bimini Road, the Cuban underwater city, and other Atlantic anomalies. In this view, the structures were lost during the cataclysms of the last ice age, when melting glaciers raised sea levels and triggered massive geological upheavals. If this is true, the triangle might not just be a hazard zone. It could be the final resting place of a forgotten capital. An even more speculative theory connects the deep-water structures to the triangle's modern mysteries. Some believe that if there are ancient pyramids or megalithic installations on the seabed, they might have been designed to interact with the Earth's magnetic field, harnessing or focusing natural energy. Over thousands of years, these installations could still be influencing the environment, causing localized magnetic disturbances sudden weather changes, or even temporary disruptions in space-time. This, they argue, might explain the strange disappearances reported in the region. Skeptics remain unconvinced, noting that without hard evidence, high-resolution imaging, direct sampling, and verifiable documentation, such ideas remain in the realm of speculation. The triangle's geology is complex, and natural formations can often mimic artificial shapes, especially when interpreted from sonar data. The human brain is adept at seeing patterns where none exist, a cognitive bias known as pareidolia. Still, the lure of the abyss remains. The triangle's deep zones are some of the least explored parts of the Atlantic. Autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, and remotely operated vehicles roves are beginning to open up new possibilities, capable of mapping in unprecedented detail and even retrieving samples from depths once unreachable. If there is anything truly extraordinary down there, the coming decades may finally reveal it. Until then, the abyss keeps its secrets. Somewhere in the cold, crushing dark, shapes loom on the seabed, silent, immovable, and perhaps as old as humanity itself. Are they the last monuments of a vanished civilization, or simply the artistry of geology writ large on the ocean floor? The answer may lie waiting in the shadowed depths, just beyond the reach of our lights. For centuries, our understanding of history has been drawn from what we can see. The ruins that stand above ground, the artifacts unearthed from deserts and jungles, the cities preserved by time on dry land. Yet, as we have followed this journey, from the shallow stone causeways of Bimini to the shadowed abyss of the Bermuda Triangle, from the flooded harbors of Dwarka to the sunken temples of the Mediterranean, a larger truth has become impossible to ignore. Most of Earth's history lies beneath the sea. More than 70% of our planet is covered by ocean. The continental shelves, now submerged, were once dry land during the Ice Age, supporting human settlements, trade routes, and cultural centers that have long since been erased from the visible map. When the glaciers melted and the seas rose, millions of square kilometers of fertile plains and coastal cities were swallowed. What remains of them is scattered in fragments. A road here, a plaza there, a pyramid now cloaked in coral. The anomalies we have explored in this series, Atlantis, Yonaguni, the Gulf of Cambay, Heracleion, Lake Titicaca, the Dragon's Triangle, may not all be connected in the literal sense. Some may be natural formations, others the ruins of known civilizations, and still others something far older and harder to categorize. But taken together, they point toward a simple, staggering possibility. Our current narrative of human history is incomplete. The official timeline tells us that complex civilizations only emerged about 6,000 years ago, in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China. Yet here are sites that, if dated and confirmed, could be thousands of years older, hinting at cultures with advanced engineering, maritime navigation, and organized urban life long before recorded history begins. It's not just the structures themselves, but the patterns they reveal. Many are located along what would have been Ice Age coastlines. Several share architectural features, megalithic blocks, stepped terraces, precise alignments that seem unlikely to be coincidental. Most are linked to flood myths, creator god legends, or stories of vanished lands preserved by local cultures. This convergence of geography, design, and myth suggests that ancient peoples, perhaps more connected than we imagine, were building, trading, and storytelling across vast distances. And then there is the other possibility, that some of these sites bear the fingerprints not just of human hands, but of knowledge introduced from outside. Ancient astronaut theorists point to shared global motifs, sky gods, star maps, and sudden leaps in technology, as evidence of contact with visitors from beyond Earth. Whether or not one accepts that idea, it is undeniable that many of these ancient works still defy full explanation with the tools and knowledge we assume were available at the time. What makes these mysteries so enduring is the ocean itself. The sea is both protector and destroyer. It hides ruins from the plunder of war and time, but it also buries them beneath silt, coral, and crushing depths. Accessing them is costly, dangerous, and technically challenging. For every Yonaguni or Heracleion discovered, there may be dozens of others waiting unseen on the ocean floor. But that is changing. Advances in sonar mapping, autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, deep diving, ROVs, and satellite-based bathymetry are revealing the contours of the seabed with unprecedented clarity. As costs fall and technology spreads, the pace of underwater discovery will accelerate. In the coming decades, we may find that the true cradles of civilization, the real first cities, are not in the river valleys of known history, but in the drowned coastlines of a world that existed before the sea claimed it. What then are we to make of the legends? Atlantis, Mu Lemuria, and the sunken realms of indigenous tradition. Are they mere allegories or imperfect memories of real places and events? Perhaps they are both, stories shaped by time, but rooted in a collective memory of catastrophe, resilience, and rebirth. And perhaps the real lesson in these submerged worlds is not just about what we lost, but about who we are. Civilizations rise and fall, coastlines shift, cities glitter for a time, then fade into sand and water. Yet human curiosity endures, and with it, the drive to remember. Standing on a modern shoreline, gazing out across the endless horizon, we are looking not just at the ocean, we are looking at the greatest archive of human history, still sealed, still waiting. Every wave that breaks over the shallows is passing above streets, temples, and harbors where our ancestors once walked. Every current that sweeps across the continental shelves may be brushing against the stones of a story we have yet to tell. The oceans hold our memory, and until we learn to read them, history itself remains incomplete. Epilogue. Somewhere, deep in the Atlantic or the Pacific, in the silence where no light reaches, a wall still stands, a statue still watches, a road still leads into darkness. They are waiting for us, not to dream of them as myths, but to find them, measure them, and remember.